Thank you for staying with us. Now, the Southern Kaduna People's Union has called on the Senate to order the conduct of a referendum to determine the boundaries of its proposed Gurara state. This, the union says, will solve the problem of overlap caused by Chikun local government area whose parts encroached into the northern part of Kaduna state. Now, speaking to News Central Television in Kano, the president of Sokapu, Taraba Kato, says that both the executive and legislative arm of the state are in full support of the proposed Gurara state, which will be a reality as soon as the referendum is conducted. Our correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, now joins me to further discuss this. Thank you for joining, Emmanuel. If you can hear me, yes, you covered this event. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's just about trying to investigate the evidence of the claim made by the people of Southern Kaduna, who claim that they have all the requisite qualifications that that can qualify them to become a state. They mentioned that they have the intellectual capacities, they have the natural resources, they have the numbers. So in investigating that, I have to look at the statistics and look at whether these people are actually qualified to have their own proposed Gurara state. And from my records, of course, you recall a pronouncement made by the former governor of the state, former governor of Kaduna State, National Verify, somebody declared to us that 69% of the workforce of Kaduna State are from Southern Kaduna, that's the Gurara axis. And of course, if that's the case, it simply means that they have quite a number of intellectual persons. And then, of course, secondly, they have a very large voting population. From the last election, we saw 5 local governments bringing out a huge number of voting population comprising of Igabi, Chukun, Zangonkata, Kachia, and Zaria. Now, among those 5 local governments, you agree with me that 3 of those local governments actually are from the southern part of Kaduna. Of course, Chukun, Igabi is the largest in terms of voting population, followed by Chukun, and the second is Kachia, and then the third Zangonkata. I mean, so that simply means that they have that number. So with the assertion by Nasir El-Rufai, which says that about 69% of the Southern Kaduna people are making up the workforce of the Kaduna State Civil Service, that actually proves the fact that they have the intellectual capacity to be called a state, using those statistics. Then, of course, they claim they have the natural resources. They have a huge arable land, and they are the highest that cultivate ginger in Nigeria and, of course, in this West Africa. So they believe that they have those, those qualifications. Then, of course, they also claim they have a very rich cultural heritage. And they claim that the issue of imposition of culture, the issue of imposition of religion, and the issue of religious crisis will come to an end. You recall in 2001, we had the issue of the Sharia crisis, where during the regime of Ahmed Kafi, where we have a group who went, to express themselves that they want Sharia to be imposed in the state, and another group going there to, talk to the then Governor McCarthy that they don't want Sharia to be imposed, and at the end of the day, clash, and there was a serious crisis. So all these things will, it will become history according to them, and of course, everybody will operate in space, and that's not to undermine the importance of cultural integration, the importance of diversity, and the importance of religious tolerance. They have made it clear that they are going to embrace anybody, meaning House of Fulani, anybody that is interested in being part of the Gurara, and anything that has been controversy, talking about the issue of wanting a referendum, particularly local government, encroaching into Kaduna North. That, of course, the Senate is going to look at that referendum. They beg the Senate to conduct that referendum in 3 months so that the memoranda will be sorted out in terms of boundaries. Thank you.
But what's the possibility, in your opinion, of this, passing through? Because this has actually been going on for so many years now.
Yes. Yeah, it's certainly according to their words, they believe that the journey has ended. They have come to the end of the road, and they believe that the current Senate is going to do something because they have gathered a lot of evidence. So the evidence they presented are quite, verifiable. Of course, I just mentioned one, which was asserted by the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, where he mentioned that 69% of the entire civil service in Kaduna State comes from that axis, from southern part of Kaduna. I mean, that enough, is enough to make the Senate, of course, make a case for them at the Senate. Yeah.
Fingers crossed, and see how it goes. But thank you so much for joining us, Emmanuel. Away from that, a new bill proposing 182 reserved legislative seats for women is gaining support in the House of Representatives. The initiative, led by the House Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, seeks to enhance female representation in Nigeria's political landscape. The proposal calls for one additional seat for women in both chambers of the National Assembly from each state and the FCT. It also recommends 3 extra reserved seats per state in state houses of assembly. Lawmakers backing the bill argue that it addresses the long-standing underrepresentation of women in politics despite their large population. Advocates describe the measure as essential to strengthening inclusive governance and dismantling systemic barriers. National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu has reported a significant decline in Boko Haram attacks, banditry, and communal violence in northern Nigeria over the past 2 years. He attributed the improvement to a unified security strategy implemented under President Bola Tinubu's administration. Now, during the previous government, Kaduna State recorded 1,192 deaths and over 3,348 kidnappings, while Benue State saw more than 5,000 deaths in the same period. Ribadu represented the figures during a 2-day interactive session with northern leaders in Kaduna State. He noted that the efforts coordinated by the security agencies have played a key role in reducing violence and restoring stability. The session also focused on sustaining these gains and addressing remaining security challenges across the northern region. July 30th is the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, a global call to confront one of the most pressing human rights issues of our time. This year's theme, Human Trafficking is Organized Crime and the Exploitation, highlights the growing threats of criminal networks behind the trade. In Nigeria, the day is being marked with advocacy efforts across major cities, including a walk in the capital. Joining us live from Abuja is our correspondent, Sumaya Abubakar, who took part in the theme walk earlier today. Thank you for joining us, Sumaya. Sumaya, go ahead and tell us what the atmosphere, is like, and what are the key messages from the campaigners this year?
Well, early in the morning, I'll say about 9 a.m. and the walk starts. Advocates organize themselves in order to have a march in commemoration of the World Day Against Human Trafficking. And one of our major concerns, of course, is the fact that each time this, our anti-trafficking agency that is NAPTIP find or help someone bring them back home, then there is always another person falling victim to this situation, this syndicate. So hence the theme, emphasis on this year's theme 2025, which is a human trafficking is an organized crime, say, or end this exploitation. The emphasis here and the message here is that now they need to bring in more of the security agencies to have a synergy with the anti-trafficking agency and have a good fight against this, because now the tactics have increased. Not only are they doing it physically, they think that they don't even have to come to your own community to recruit you into this group. So instead, they can use social media to attract their victims. And then we all know that Nigeria is suffering from poverty and displacement, insecurity, migration, due to perhaps climate change or climate-driven migration. So all of this makes the people, Nigerians, in a vulnerable state, and they easily fall for this. So now they are saying, instead of paying attention to a victim or someone seeing something to call their attention to the authorities, the attack should be on these syndicates, because they are people that have been earning money from this situation and putting people's lives at risk, of course, using them for labor and sexual exploitation. So that is the major concern this year, and the call is on government to make sure that they attack these syndicates in order to eradicate human trafficking. I must emphasize that these people, talking about the advocates, made for the 2025 is the most important time to have a more awareness-driven ways in order to hold, create awareness for this and hold these people accountable, because the numbers have actually increased in Nigeria and also globally.
All right. Well, thank you for that update, Sumaya. Thank you.
Of course.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll tell you concerns grow as nurses begin warning strike. Stay with us. Household consumption in Nigeria has declined dramatically, with first quarter and second quarter 2024 figures showing a minus 42.28% and minus 61.18% drop year-on-year respectively, and this is according to the NBS data published in July 2025. Quarter-on-quarter, quarter two spending collapsed by 99.24%, and despite falling inflation, stagnant wages and dollar-priced imports are driving the downturn. Multinationals are exiting as consumers can no longer afford basic goods. Analysts recommend urgent policy actions, reduce food prices by restoring security in farmlands, introduce a tax holiday for SMEs, subsidize power costs through VAT-linked rebates, and gradually lower long-term interest rates. Now, without stimulus, prolonged weak consumption could deepen economic fragility and stall Nigeria's recovery efforts. I'm now joined by Itoro Nehemiah. He is an investment banker and with Parthian Partners. Thank you so much, Itoro, for joining me on the news.
Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, what are the key drivers behind the sharp drop in household consumption in the first and second quarters of 2024?
Okay, so I'll say that the key drivers for that sharp drop is something that almost every Nigerian can relate to, and this is beyond whatever economic terms or analysis we may throw around it. And in one word, it's simply inflation. I think every Nigerian has witnessed this. Every Nigerian has experienced this. I've seen the prices of goods and commodities rise, and driven chiefly, I think in 2024 we saw some record high inflation numbers driven by food inflation and energy costs as well, which are some of the effects of the removal of the fuel subsidy. So what's happened is, even though we've seen how disposable income grow by about 17%, inflation has grown a lot faster, or inflation grew a lot faster over that period, which led to, in real terms, or wage decline in real terms. So basically, households, even with, say, similar income levels, were only able to afford less. So the purchasing power of those households reduced. And that's why we had the sharp drop in household consumption over those periods.
Okay, what about how has inflation and stagnant wage growth contributed to the rise of the sachet economy in Nigeria?
I would say it's contributed, right? As I mentioned, because of high inflation exceeding wage growth, what that meant, or what that means, is that we have households who are no longer able to buy as much as they could. Purchasing power has reduced. And so suppliers, in response to this, have, packaged some of those goods in smaller quantities. Say, for example, a household could buy a bag of rice and, get away with it. Reduced purchasing power means that they're not able to afford that bag of rice because costs have gone up. And so with suppliers packaging those goods in smaller quantities, households are able to buy in those quantities. It's sort of manageable. However, I think while it has the benefit of making these products, also having these products be accessible to the everyday Nigerian, the flip side of this conversation is that such households then lose out on the benefits of economies of scale, like buying in large quantities, or some of the units, I would say, unit margins you gain when you buy in large quantities as opposed to when you buy in smaller quantities. But yeah, that's why we've had the sachet economy. It's been in response to, I would say, it's been the market's response to the reducing purchasing power of these households.
So why are multinationals exiting Nigeria? Is it closely tied to reducing cost or reduced customer spending or consumer spending?
So I would say yes, to a certain extent, there would be some correlation there, but I would say that multinationals exit Nigeria or have exited Nigeria in the last couple of years for a myriad of reasons. Some of them being strategic. We've seen companies, I think like P&G, changing its model from producing Nigeria to an import only. We've seen Unilever rebalance its product portfolio. We've seen some of that. We've had many other reasons as to why some of these multinationals have exited FX challenges, but I would say that collapsed demand is perhaps one of those reasons as well. So collapsed demand and high inflation, cost of production, all the works. On the one hand, these exits create opportunities for local players to come into that space and help Nigeria's journey towards self-sufficiency, but also raises concerns, given some of the cost of productions we have here in Nigeria. May not exactly be a very good signal if we're looking to attract more FDIs. And then there's also the question of the local players' capabilities to continue to invest in capital projects in that space to improve those sectors.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Itore, for your time and for speaking on this.
Thank you for having me.
To legislative matters now, the Nigerian Senate has given the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited a 3-week ultimatum to address discrepancies amounting to 210 trillion naira in its audited financial statements from 2017 to 2023. This came during a session of the Senate Committee on Public Accounts chaired by Aliyu Wadada, which clarified that the funds were not declared missing but remained unaccounted for in NNPCL's financial records. News Central Sagir Ibrahim reports from the National Assembly.
The audit discrepancies involve over 103 trillion naira in liabilities and 107 trillion naira in receivables. Lawmakers say the absence of detailed documentation on these figures raise red flags for governance and accountability.
The 3 items presented in that book that made up the accrued expenses were or are still 3 items: retention fee, legal fees, and audited fees. And why we said the figure is not acceptable to us, no figure was allocated to any of these 3 items.
This isn't the first time the Senate has raised these concerns. Previous deadlines were extended following NNPCL's requests, citing internal retreats and the complexity of data gathering. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Bayo Ojulari, who appeared before the committee, acknowledged the lapses and pleaded for more time yet again to respond to 19 queries raised by the auditors. The lawmakers, however, insist that the fresh 3-week window is final.
I would like to plead with you, Mr. Chairman, sir, and the senators, to please give me some time to quick look into this specific perspective that you have given. Personally, I need to understand that as CEO, I need to understand these issues myself so that I can ensure appropriate representations whenever we have to appear before you.
Members of the Senate committee weighed in on the matter, emphasizing the need for transparency and urging the group CEO to provide full clarity.
When anybody hears it, he may not sleep again for 1 year. And we believe that your presence here will help us to unravel those issues and put the correct perspective to this committee.
I'm most concerned about the inconsistent financial report of the NNPC, which are issues raised in the audit report. That has to be checked, and under your watch, we will expect to see a lot of changes.
Nigerians are waiting, expecting to know what will come out of this. But to get the facts straight, and for the NNPCL, led by the new DCO, to be able to brief us, maybe the audited reports might not be correct.
The committee maintained that its goal is not to indict, but to ensure accountability and restore public confidence in state-owned enterprises. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
To health matters, A major concern is ravaging Nigeria's healthcare system as nurses across the country have embarked on a 7-day warning strike to press home demands for better working conditions, fairer remuneration, and improved welfare packages. The strike, which began Tuesday at the expiration of the initial 15-day ultimatum, has already triggered widespread concern, with public health advocates and FCT residents warning of severe consequences if the government fails to act swiftly. Coming up after the break, King of Morocco reiterates call for talks with Algeria to repair relations damaged by disputes over the Western Sahara. We'll bring you details in a moment. Stay with us. Away from Nigeria, the King of Morocco reiterated on Tuesday his call for talks with Algeria to repair relations damaged by disputes over the Western Sahara. In a speech marking his 26th anniversary on the throne, Mohammed said Morocco is ready for a frank and responsible dialogue that is fraternal and sincere and on the various outstanding issues between the two countries. Western Sahara, a Spanish colony until 1975, is largely controlled by Morocco, but considered a non-self-governing territory by the United Nations. The conflict there has pitted Morocco against the Algerian-backed Polisario Front separatists for 50 years. U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted that he may not attend the upcoming G20 summit in South Africa, accusing the country of what he described as bad policies. Trump told reporters on Tuesday that he may send a representative to the summit in November. Tensions between Washington and Pretoria have been simmering for months. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent both skipped the G20 ministerial talks hosted earlier this year in South Africa, a move widely seen as a diplomatic snub. And now, with just 2 days to go before steep U.S. tariffs are set to kick in, a trade deal between both countries remains up in the air. South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry says it is still waiting for formal feedback from Washington. The African Union says it will not recognize a so-called parallel government announced by Sudan's Rapid Support Forces. In a statement on Wednesday, the AU's Peace and Security Council urged all member states and the international community to reject any moves that risk Sudan's unity. The warning comes after the RSF named a prime minister over the weekend, escalating the 2-year civil war against the official Sudanese government. The AU says such steps threaten ongoing peace efforts and the country's very future. Sudan has been mired in deadly conflicts since April 2023, with both sides accused of atrocities and the humanitarian crisis deepening. In Angola, at least 7 people have been killed and more than 1,200 arrested as violent protests over a fuel price hike spiral out of control. 4 people were reported dead on Monday alone as the unrest intensified. In the capital, Luanda, public transport ground to a halt, shops closed their doors, and sporadic gunfire echoed through the streets. Looters took advantage of the chaos, raiding several supermarkets. Police confirmed the deaths of 1 officer and at least 2 civilians, one reportedly struck by a stray bullet. Protests have also erupted in other major cities, including Huambo and Benguela. The trigger, a sharp jump in petrol prices from 300 to 400 kwanzas per litre, deepening economic pain in one of Africa's top oil-producing nations. Angola's inflation soared to nearly 20% in June, while unemployment edges close to 30%. In the world of sports, the Niger State Ministry of Youth and Sports Development has officially submitted its bid to host the 24th edition of the National Sports Festival. The bid document was presented by Governor Umaru Bago during the State Executive Council meeting at the Government House in Mina. Leading the presentation were the Commissioner for Sports, Yahaya Ibrahim Gulbin Boka, and the Ministry's Permanent Secretary, Nuhu Garbangaski, who jointly made the case for Niger State's readiness to host the multi-sport event. Niger State faces competition from Kano, Bayelsa, Plateau, and Kaduna States for the hosting rights of the 2028 edition. In the 22nd NSF took place in Ogun State, while Enugu will host the 23rd edition in 2026. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that at least 3 injured as trucks collide in Ojota, causing major gridlock. We also told you that Sultan of Sokoto has called for end to the ongoing violence in Gaza and urged world powers to cancel crippling debts of low-income nations. Finally, you heard that King of Morocco has reiterated call for talks with Algeria to repair relations damaged by disputes over the Western Sahara. Remember, you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do you follow us on social media? We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Osman.